always throw that in after.
So was it?
Oh, okay, that's fine, I got the red one. That's fine, I like red. You can see things.
He's not.
Okay.
Oh, Tony.
You know, before we this there, Steve, because he was
Right.
Yeah, and
with him on Saturday, that would be.
Yeah.
No, I would be.
yes, today, I know. All right, can we have everyone rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and then please remain standing afterwards? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If everyone could please remain standing, we could have a moment of silence for the victims of the synagogue shooting in Pittsburgh, as well as the unfortunate shooting this morning in California. Thank you.
Hey, buddy.
Okay, I would like to open up the public hearing for the water, sewer, and drainage districts. I'll make a motion to open that public hearing at 7:04.
I'll second that motion.
Call the question.
Bingham, aye.
Cologne, aye.
Cardone, aye.
Scanklin, aye.
McGinn, aye.
Okay, so moved. Anybody have any things that want to be said, want to discuss? No? Anybody from the board? Nope. Okay. Yeah, this isn't the budget, this is the drainage, water.
Well, it has to do with the budget, but they're the special districts.
Yeah, it's with the special districts. No? Okay. So we'll,
Is garbage included with the special districts?
Yes.
yes.
So anybody would, so do we have to amend our motion to, because you just said sewer and water.
Brian, are we okay with that, or should we amend
Sewer, water, and
sewer? So
Garbage.
I'll amend the motion to include garbage and fire.
And
Bless you.
aquatic weeds. Road improvement.
No, because that was on the card? Was
on
it?
the
I was just
card.
looking for the card, okay.
I have the
All right,
card.
so here, give me, let's start again. I was looking for my card.
pardon me.
Okay, so that, the notice of public hearing, that the town board, the town of Monroe will hold a public hearing on the following benefit assessment rolls at 101 Mine Road, Monroe Senior Center, on November 8th at 7 o'clock or as soon thereafter as may be heard. This includes refuge and garbage districts, sewer districts, water districts, drainage districts, aquatic weed districts 1 and 2, Lakeview Drive road improvement, Lower Hillside road improvements. Excuse me. Copy of the benefit assessment rolls are on file for public inspection at the office of the town clerk, Town Hall, 1465 Orange Turnpike. It goes on to say, please be advised if you are in one or more of these districts and have the right to be present and heard. Town of Monroe will make every effort to assure that the public hearing is accessible to persons with disabilities. Anyone requiring special assistance or accommodations should contact the town clerk. This was sent out on October 30th, 2018, by order of the town board of the town of Monroe, Mary Ellen F. Beams, town clerk. Anyone want to speak?
Ward Broward, private citizen. On the budget, Department of the Garbage District, did we change carriers?
No, we did not change carriers. What happened was there was a 22% increase in tipping fees from the county. They're passing along to us. They only had one person bid on their transfer station contract, and that was IWS. and it went up from $85 per tipping fee to approximately $104 for each, I guess, ton. And what'll happen is, we're in the process of negotiating with Morangi to, work out a price for us. That amount in our budget is about $125,000 and change higher than it was last year. And the units also have been adjusted, so I'm going to be sitting down with Morangi in the next week or two to try to iron out a figure that's conducive to both of us, because there's a formula within our contract that we have to go by. And after that is completed, we'll come up with a figure, and I will tell you that the appropriation that we have in there, it will not go higher than that.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Anyone else? Anybody from the town board? No? Okay, we need a motion to close that part of,
I'll make that motion to
Okay.
close it.
I'll second.
At this point.
got that, Val? Okay, call the question.
Bingham, aye.
Cologne, aye.
Cardone, aye.
Scancarello, aye.
McGinn, aye.
So moved. Okay, I'd like to open up the public hearing for the 2019 preliminary budget.
And I will second that motion.
Okay? Call the question.
Bingham, aye.
Cologne, aye.
Cardone, aye.
Scancarello, aye.
McGinn, aye.
Okay, so moved. So, is that TV on for you now? Okay. All right, I'd like to go through a little presentation here pertaining to the budget. We'll go through the slides. Any questions you have? Did that go off, George?
It went off. Something's loose.
It says AV HDMI on the,
Yeah, there we go.
It's
You got
back.
it.
Okay. So this is essentially our budget overview. You guys have packages in front of you on the town board just to follow along. So in our 2019 tentative budget, our townwide levy this year is $388,635,000 and change, which represents a 27% drop from last year's taxable value. That's townwide. In the part town, it's a little over 201 million, which represents about 1/3 of 1% drop, and that's essentially from the 56 acres and change that was annexed into Palm Tree, part town. Obviously, the 27% is a representation of the entire town of Palm Tree or the village of Kyrus Joel. So after we included our revenues, the property tax levy for this year is $4,096,319, which represents a 11.5% drop from last year's tax levy. We only appropriated $40,000 out of any fund balances, which went into the DB fund? DB fund. And that was a drop from last year's $185,000 fund balance that was appropriated, which is a change of minus 72%. So this year's total budget is a 5% drop from last year's budget, and we're still in the process of sharpening our pencils on this. So right now, it's just a tad over $13 million, which represents what our total budget this year is. So presently, we have 6 grants that we're in the process of obtaining. We have approval for 3. We're waiting for another 3. We have a highway road infrastructure grant, which was extremely essential in helping us close that gap of the difference. That's a $400,000 grant. That was through Senator Larkin's office with the help of Tom Basili, who was really the one that initiated it. We have the renovation of Town Hall, which is a $250,000 grant that's been approved through Senator Larkin's office and the SAM program. There's a $31,000 CDBG grant, which comes from the county. That's a community development block grant. That's for this senior center. It represents senior center doors and the HVAC replacement, which is 2 units that we have here. There's the renovation of the town clerk's offices, which came from Assemblyman Brabennick. There's a discrepancy right now. We've applied for $30,000, and New York State is telling us that any SAM grant from an assemblyman has to be $50,000. So we're not going to argue in the process. We're just still awaiting approval on that.
Just give me back the 20 grand.
Yeah. There's an Arts, Heritage, and Tourism grant, which Mary was helpful, and my secretary Jen was the one who applied for it, as she did apply for all the other grants, and did the paperwork, which is $5,000. That was supposed to be approved and used for the food truck festival through the art program that we had, but the county had a little backup in getting their approvals together. I spoke with Amanda Dana, who was the head of Heritage and Tourism, and she basically told us that she would be working on it and hopefully would have an answer for us by the end of November. And that's $5,000. And Mary was instrumental in working with,
Jen again, and
no, I'm
Sean Arnott.
Shawna and Rich Mayfield.
Yes.
Rich Mayfield. And by the way, I forgot to let you know, Rich Mayfield called me last Sunday evening and said he's working on it. He didn't forget us. We're just going through the process with it. So that's a $500,000 New York State infrastructure improvement grant. So we hope to get that, which will essentially apply to Water District 12's pump house upgrade. So getting into the minutia of the budget. So this year, our salaries will be approximately $2,833,572, which represent a 1.2% increase. There were some jobs that have been eliminated or cut, and some overtime dollars that have been cut out of it. Currently, the average increase is a little over 2.5 for employees. It should be noted that the town council took a 0% increase, and the other elected officials took a 2% increase, which was anywhere between 0.5% to 1% less than all the other employees. This is essentially an overview of where your money is spent regarding salaries by department. So basically, it will start from the top left. Dial bus represents 14%. Planning and zoning represents 9%. Senior center recreation, I think that's 1% or 2%.
3.
Is it 3? Because
Yep.
mine here says percentage. It doesn't have a number.
Yeah, 3%. You got that.
Okay, right, okay. Town council's 2%, justice court is 10, supervisor's office and finance department, that's 11%. The assessor's office is 8%, and town clerk's office is 5%, dog shelter 1%, and highway is 37%. It should be noted that there was a combination of offices. We combined the supervisor's office, finance department, and HR, and the net result of that will be somewhere above $62,000. And that's from, obviously, the elimination of a position and the elimination of some other possible salaries going forward. This is where your payroll taxes and employee benefits, this is how they're spent. I don't know why it's not showing the number up there.
You want this?
No, I have it here, but I want the public to see it. Are you, you're just seeing value up there? Well, I mean, I could go this to you, and I'd be happy to hand these out to anyone that wants afterwards. So, we'll start out with Social Security. It went from about 173,000 to 175, which represents a 1.2% increase. Medicare went from 40,500 to 41,000, which that represents a 1.2% increase. New York State Retirement, it went from 329,000 to 331,600, representing a less than a 1% increase. The dental went from 60,200 to 63,200, which represents a 5% increase. Let's see, it's just showing that one. Just showing the one value up here. Yeah. Then we go to health. That went from 592,986 to 652,285. Now, I know Helen and Roberta have been working diligently trying to get a number here, and this represents a 10% increase. Do you want to comment on the low end?
Yeah, actually, we spoke to the retirement system, and they're telling us that a very good projection would be around 8%, and the high end would be 15%. So they're looking at more between reality of between 8 and 10%. So we took a little bit of the higher to be on the safe side, but we're hoping that it will come in lower.
Thank you. Okay, next is life insurance, which remained the same at $2,702. Eye care remained the same at $20,400. Long-term disability, that went up approximately 5.3% to $16,904. The MTA tax went up 1.3% to $9,634. And then workman's comp, that actually dropped a little over 3.5%. So those are payroll taxes and employee benefits. We go to the next slide. What'd you do here, Brian?
Sabotaged you.
You sabotaged me. Oh, wait, I got it.
Yeah, maximize the screen. You got it?
Yep. Okay. So this is Highway Department, salary and benefits specific to funds. I think the most asked question I've had in the last month and a half was, are you charging your salaries of highway to the various funds? And we have, and again, the values are, this didn't happen before. So with respect to highway, in the overall budget total, it's $971,401. In the A fund, you're looking at $147,756, and remember the A fund is townwide. You're looking at the DA fund, which represents $311,223. There's obviously nothing appropriated in the B fund. The DB fund is $487,162, and these are numbers from last year, I'm sorry. The sewer fund, $3,351, and the water fund is $21,909. So now if you flip it over to this year, there's a 2.1% increase over 18. So the total budget was $992,672. A Fund, $151,113. DA Fund, $317,457. DB Fund, $496,906. Sewer Fund, $3,418, and the Water Fund is $23,788. So if we go on to highlights here, so basically what's happening is we had the 27% decrease in the taxable value due to palm trees formation. Everything on the left represents some of the major decreases we had. We had a 5% decrease in total budget. Thanks to Jimmy Rogers' hard work and volunteerism, we had our town lighting budget cut by $40,000. The combination of the finance, HR, and the supervisor's office results in a $62,000 plus difference. Monroe Theater operational transfer represents over $400,000 in savings to taxpayers. The elimination of rent is $108,000 per year for the town hall, and the $160,000 ban, which is titled town hall, but was essentially the theater, is no longer a payment we have to deal with. The reason it was called town hall, Helen informed me today, is that when they originally applied, that was the name it was given, and it couldn't be transferred because it was too far through the process. Essentially, the reason it was titled that is because that was supposed to be a renovation for a town hall.
Yes, Tony?
Yep.
The original intent, when we purchased the theater, 2 floors were going to be renovated for the town hall, and the rest were going to have the 3 theaters open. That's why it was called town hall at that point.
Yeah. All right, thank you. And then the final is, major cut was the elimination of our water department contract, which is now incorporated under our highway department. Then we go over to the key budget additions. The 1.2 increase in total salaries, 10% increase in health insurance cost. There's the purchase of the new town hall, which is $2,584,000 roughly, with some adjustments. In addition, we'll also be getting $75,000 in a bond that's held by the village. The debt service on that is $225,000 a year. We're purchasing a new highway truck. I know John's got one truck that's already out of service, and we're probably going to have to replace him. Another one next year. I was over there this morning, and there really hasn't been a lot of thought given to the highway over the last 10 years, and it's, it's something that we really have to address going forward, because, I have pictures of a truck, and the wear and tear that they take is something that's insurmountable at times. Our new truck that we bought last year has rust on it in spots that don't even get exposed to the rain. It's unreal. I had never realized how bad it could get, and that's on a truck that's been cleaned immediately after it was taken off the road for snowplow. There's an IMA with Woodbury for enhanced dog control services, which is saving us in the tens of thousands of dollars. Although it's costing us somewhere in the neighborhood of 22. There's a possible addition, which the board is going to discuss, of a highway mechanic. With that said, that highway mechanic would be reimbursed, or the town would be reimbursed for 50% of the benefits and the salary from federal and state monies, because it would be a 50% dial-a-bus mechanic and a 50% highway mechanic. So there's some certifications he would have to go through, but this was something that was really thought of by the town of Warwick dial-a-bus supervisor, Jen Crover, who we actually contracted with Warwick to do an IMA, and she's been consulting with us, and she's already brought in what the IMA cost us, which is $22,000, probably 15 to 20 fold already. There is a budget officer salary of $7,500 for next year. That's myself. This year, there was no stipend to it, which was fine. There's a $43,000 cost for the purchase of 6 new buses. That represents 5 buses at $7,000 and 1 bus at $8,000. The reason in the difference is that 1 bus is an extended bus, so it fits more passengers. Then we're like 98% completed with the 2016 audit. They're actually following up with us in the next couple of weeks to finalize everything with that, and they're going to be starting the 2017 end-of-year budget. So, with that said, what all this represents to everyone is our goals today going forward: fiscal responsibility, accountability. We've been trying to adhere to the best practices for the benefit of the taxpayers, and all this with enhanced and uncompromised service for our taxpayers. We don't see any loss of services or any loss of aspects that taxpayers would seek to use, whether it be town clerk's office, parks, highway, or what have you. So, if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to entertain them right now.
Good evening, Mike Goldstein. I congratulate you on cutting down the percentages for the tax levies. I have a few questions. One of them, you highlighted flagship revenue. I don't know what that is, so I'd be curious to know what that is.
Flagship revenue is a $30,000 approximate value that we'll get from then going over the overage, the natural break point in the lease, which is $1 million. So anything over $1 million, we'll be getting 10% off.
Okay,
And
now,
Flagship's the company. That's the name of the
Sorry?
company. Flagship is the name of the company. That
No,
okay.
the lease
Yeah.
for the movie theater.
fines and forfeited bail, we've only got 43,000 so far this year. Is that something that's going to come in later, after in the next calendar year? Because if we've only got 43,000 so far this year, why would we expect 320,000 next year?
Okay, I'll explain that as best I can, and then I'll have Helen chime in.
Okay.
But what happened is our previous controller would take that money into a separate account and was supposed to be transferring into this account, but it had never been done this year, but I think one time.
Okay.
You want to add anything?
No, that's...
And then the last one is the state revenue sharing of 500,000. When does that check come to us on the mortgage tax?
Mortgage taxes are usually paid towards the end of the year.
So you would hope to get some of that money in by December?
Well, from last year, yes.
That's what I'm talking
Yeah.
about. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ward Brower?
Ward Brower, private citizen. This process is a little different than what I've experienced in the last 30 years, I must say. The public has not really been involved in it. I didn't go to that budget meetings because a 3-minute comment is found a little restrictive, and if it was working anyway. But I am curious, with the former government, we got rid of a lot of waste. Got rid of a gas-guzzling SUV, got rid of security people we had all over the place. We outsourced our animal control people and cut that down. We're reconfiguring dial-a-bus and saving a bundle there. Fired an expensive controller. And then we got rid of the theater. So I would expect that we would be getting dividend checks, not increases. But then I remember back 2017, a controller that was still here, and he was here at every meeting practically, he warned this board, watch out for this new town agreement. because it's going to affect the budget. But no one listened to them. In fact, they took it off the agenda. So if we subtract all these grants, which are government handouts from higher up, we'd be in deep trouble. We're in deep trouble now with just a little over a 9% increase, and this is scary. Think, should have thought that out, and we shouldn't have rushed into this new town. We were warned not to rush into this new town, but no one took those heeds of that controller. We can badmouth him all we want, but I knew the guy for 30 years, disagreed with him politically on many points. When it came to budget, for the most part, he was right on the money. And I think that was a bad mistake getting rid of them. Thank you.
Lorraine Loning.
Hi, Lorraine Loning, Village of Monroe. I just have a couple of questions. The fines and forfeited bail, is that related to the courts?
Courts, yes.
So, this was never really explained to me clearly. Palm Tree, when they don't have a court, are we still involved in that in some way? Shouldn't our revenues be going down based on?
Well, not necessarily.
Okay.
Because.
But perhaps.
Perhaps, because they had their own public service, police department.
Right.
And state troopers really didn't patrol through there.
Right.
So a small percentage of the tickets came out of there. So
there were minimal summonses written there by state police, which is the primary law enforcement agency, and that covers the town. So it's not, we don't see that it's going to be a tremendous loss of fines coming out of there because of that.
Okay, thank you.
And whether they form their own town court is up to them.
Right.
We have no. You know, what they do is going to be their business. We don't.
Right.
Who knows?
The mortgage tax. I was under the understanding that a majority of the mortgage tax was based on sales of homes over in Curious Joel. So wouldn't we expect to see this number come down?
Well, we have to put into play what is going to happen over here too.
Right.
And there are new homes being built over here.
Okay.
So we have to take that in consideration as well.
Okay. Your confidential secretary, that I see an increase of almost 30%. Is that
No. What happened was that was originally budgeted incorrectly. Her present salary is, I think, $37,000 and change. She has taken on more than her responsibilities. She's handled grants. She handles a lot of what goes on with our copy machines. For me, and I think everybody in town hall would concur, she's a go-to person when it comes to solving problems with our IT. She actually solved a problem with our IT service one day that essentially saved us about $1,500. And we felt as a board that someone like that steps up and moves forward should be compensated as someone who would be dealing with all those aspects of a job.
Okay, cool. And then highway garage building and repair. Last year it was at $55,000. For next year you're budgeting $6,600. I mean,
What page are you on?
I'm sorry, that's page 8. I mean, that's like a garage door, like in my house. So, like, I don't know how.
Highway garage building repair and maintenance?
Yes, sir. It was 55 currently. Next
Right.
year, 6,600. It
Well,
seems
look
lowballing.
what we spent through 11/9.
Right.
And from what I understand, John, that a lot of that, because I believe he was paid already, had to do
Oil
with...
separator is the biggie, that's
Yeah.
why we added that 55,000 or whatever that was at that point. So the oil water separator, that was the biggie. We're still working on that process right now. Actually, the bids that came back are astronomical, a
Yeah.
lot more than that. So we're gonna have to figure something out to save us some money here.
Okay.
But,
I mean, we
yeah.
could encumber that money for next year to pay for the oil separator.
Right.
That's an option.
and so
too.
anything that happens at the highway garage as well, I will come back to the town board if I need
Right.
extra monies and explain to them the situations, and then we'll go from there.
And then there was a rock salt I saw that gosh, where the heck is that? Page 16.
Yeah, the rock salt, the drop in the rock salt was because at the point of this budget, we did not have an IMA with Kyrie's Joel.
That's right. Okay.
So it was about a $100,000
Right.
difference. Although I will tell you that as of about 10 o'clock this morning, they have kind of agreed to a contract. I don't want to discuss the numbers now because we haven't finalized it,
Right.
but I will tell you that the salt will not be part of it because we don't want taxpayers to have to foot the bill for the salt and then get reimbursed for it.
Okay.
So.
That's- And then I guess the last thing I have is, has there been any talk about fund balance? When Curious Joel separated into Palm Tree, there was some talk that perhaps that assets that the town has or fund balance and things like that, that they might be able to, I don't want to say entitled, but, you know, since they might have to migrate some of our stuff over. to
Yeah,
them.
so Mr. Nugent and I actually have an appointment next week to meet with the state and the county, along with our appraiser, to take care of that.
Okay.
But remember, they not only will take or try to ask for assets, whatever they choose,
Liabilities too.
they have to take all the
Right.
debt as well.
You know, I'm cool with that.
So-
And I mean, in general, I'm not a big fan of tax caps. I'm a big fan of home rule. I mean, I don't like people 2 hours away from us telling that they don't know individual circumstances. So I don't really have a problem going over the tax cap. So I guess we're good. Thanks.
Listen, just in answer to that, and I was telling Rick before the meeting, I have reached out to the state probably 8 to 10 times. I have not gotten a call back. One time I reached out to them, I got disconnected 3 times, and I asked for them to leave a message for someone. I have not got a call back yet on it. The only thing I can...
You mean on the tax cap?
On the tax cap.
Like what our
On the
actual
tax cap.
cap is because of the change of,
Right.
Yeah.
you know.
And I'm just looking for them to give me the formula to have a number to see where we are in respect to it. Now, they could say, we've never been through this before, so your tax cap is going to be the number that's there
Right.
from last year, which is, it was calculated at 7-point-something million, if I remember correctly. It was 7 million, I think, $39,000. But it's, until I get an answer, I'm not going to know where we stand for this. But, you know, my goal, and I think the town board's goal here, is to get both these numbers a little bit lower so that both the village and the town would only have a 6%, single-digit increase.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Wendy and Manuel Cortez.
What's that? Did you want to talk about the, was that the benefit districts? Is that what you want to discuss? Here, come on up. Come on up. Come on, Ruben.
It's okay.
We'll get you on,
We don't
we'll
bite.
get you on TV, maybe
on.
a big break.
We're pretty,
Everybody gets 15 minutes, you'll get 5 on,
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
15.
Just lower the mic, state your name and where you live.
Hi, I'm Wendy Cortez.
Hi.
We're new homeowners, so this
Welcome.
Are you on Center Hill Road?
is 4 James Street.
Oh, okay, no, okay,
Yeah.
all right.
So, oh no, we came. This is our first time, so we didn't get all the information that we needed. My question was about the water bill thing. We came late, so we didn't get any information on that. Like
On the
the
water?
water in the sewer.
Water and sewer.
Water and sewer, okay, so
Yes.
do you know what district James Street is?
Street is not in one of
That
those.
sounds village. That sounds like
That's village.
James Road?
Okay, yeah.
James Road is village, definite.
Yeah, it's like
Where the-
yeah, the village, like
Yeah, so where-
Monroe on not Monroe, Harriman Village.
Oh, okay,
That's what
so,
we-
so just so you understand, we're the town, so if this was the village, this little microphone, then the town is outside of here, so the village water districts, you'd have to go to the village of Harriman for.
Oh, okay, okay. Thank you.
each of the Village of Monroe, Village of Harriman, they have their own water departments, and they
Oh.
do their own billing and so forth.
Tell me
And
about
the
it.
sewer is actually through the county, Orange County Sewer District Number 1. So they generate the bills that you get, or go into your escrow, or however it's worked out, so none of that's us yet. So,
Not that we don't want to welcome you to the
Yeah.
neighborhood, welcome to the neighborhood.
you're part of the town anyway, but you're not getting any bills from us yet, so, all right?
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
Welcome to Monroe.
That's all that's signed up for public comment, Supervisor.
Anyone else? No?
Yeah, there was a comment about, all the grants and everything that we got, but the $400,000 that we saved from going over the flagship was a substantial amount, not including all the other IMAs. So, yes, it is true that we did obtain grants from the state. We cannot always depend on that, but we've still, as a board, come together, our due diligence, and I think we've done one heck of a job considering we've lost about, 27% of our budget.
Yeah.
And we had the increase in the tipping fees, which was an unforeseen surprise this past couple of weeks. So overall, I think it's a heck of a good budget considering what we've done, what we've been through.
And listen, we're still sharpening our pencils, and I want to thank Helen, I want to thank Roberta, and I want to thank Jen, because they were extremely diligent, extremely helpful. There was a lot of questions that I had going into this cold for the first time, and you guys really were very admirable and instrumental in helping us get to where we are right now. And I promise you, we will get lower, and we have until November 19th to do so.
I'd like to say something. Are you done, Rick? I'm sorry.
Well,
Rick is never done. Come on.
But no, that's trying to cut where we can without cutting services.
Correct.
And I think that's a very important point.
Yep.
People come to expect, they want lower taxes, but they still demand the same services, and we're trying to maintain the same level of service while trying to deliver a budget that's palatable under the circumstances that we have to work with. So it's a very delicate balance.
Yeah, and listen, I know from history, we're never going to make everyone happy.
Thank you.
But, we'll do the best we can to make the budget as acceptable as we can without costing anyone services. And that was one of the goals going into it.
All right. Now, Mr. McKinn.
Now, Ms. McGinn.
Councilwoman Bingham, would you like to go first, since we're on that side of the table?
Well, the town of Monroe water districts really made a big savings this year because we are no longer using an outside contractor. We brought those services back into our highway department. We saved so much money, we could get a truck dedicated for water district usage. I think in the future, we're going to get more efficient and better, so hopefully things are going to be even better for the water districts. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Yeah, Mary, I believe the BJS, who was the former contractor, I think their budget when we first came on the board was $250. Tony, was it about $250 a year?
$120.
It was $250 the first year.
The first
year.
And then it went down to, when they thought we were going to dump them, it went down to 120. Yeah. So, I just have a couple of quick comments. Tony, great presentation here, and I know there's a lot of work. And Helen, thank you very much for you and Roberta. It was really, I know a lot of hard work went into this, and it was a good presentation. I just want to address Mr. Brower said about the warning about the separation, and there were a few people that warned against it, including Mr. Martin, the former controller, and his competency as a controller. I'll leave that to Tony to discuss, because he could really go in length about that. But at the end of the day, we had two public hearings just as a town to go over what the tax implications are with this prior to the vote. And when the vote was held, 80% of the taxpayers in this town came out and voted yes, that they wanted the separation and they wanted Palm Tree to go out on their own. So, 80% of the taxpayers said this is what we want. The numbers that we were looking at back then were roughly 150, 160 per household that would go up. I think we're well below that. even at the highest assessed value, we're only at 107 outside the village and 98 in the village. So the average 75,000 is much less, of course. So listen, we did it as good as we could with this. We are going to look to do some additional savings, and ultimately, I think we'll be looking at other things down the road with the two villages and combination of services or combining services. So that's what I have to say on it.
Sal?
Just, this is your first year doing a budget, correct?
Well, I did it with the Park Commission, so.
I just commend you on what you did. I think taking 27% away from our town and you coming up with numbers under $100 per household, I think is remarkable. I think hats off to you. And Jen and Helen.
Yeah, because it wasn't, believe me, it was not just me. It was
Yeah,
multiple meetings, it was late hours, and, they deserve more of the credit than I do.
A great job. And I think next year, a year together, all of us, we get to stay on the board.
Yeah.
It will only benefit the town, and just great job.
All right, thank you. Just, Ward, in relationship to your comment that you didn't come last month because you didn't feel you had enough time in 3 minutes, listen, it is what it is. I will tell you that there are other towns where you're not allowed to speak at any workshops for the budget. I recently saw in the paper Tuxedo actually put in their notice, no public comment will be allowed. So, enough said on that. And listen, I don't want to comment what happened in the past with our controller. It's well documented that there were some inequities with this budget and some shifting of monies that happened. I will say that going forward, I will personally make sure that this is done with transparency and positive and a positive approach going forward. And that's basically it as far as I have to say on this budget. When we finalize things on November 19th, I think everyone will be enhanced a little more with regard to the additional percentages that we'll be able to drop. So, anybody else want to speak, comment? Nope. All right, thank you. We need a motion if it's in the best interest of the board to close the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing
I'd like to
on
second
the
it.
budget.
Seconded by Councilman Cologne. Any other discussion? No? Call the question?
Bingham, aye.
Cologne, aye.
Cardone, aye.
Scancarella, aye.
Begin, aye.
Okay, thank you. And thank you all for your comments. Yeah, sure. We're going to take a little 5-minute break. I'll make a motion to take a 5-minute break.
Can I
Second.
All right.
Seconded
Second by
by
Sal.
Councilman Scancarello. Call the question.
Bingham, aye.
Cologne, aye.
Cardone, aye.
Scancarella, aye.
Begin, aye.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, you gonna hang out over there?
So, what we did not, did we make a motion to close? Yeah, we made a motion to close.
We made
the
it
public
close.
hearing.
Yeah. Come back.
So,
Motion to come back.
make a motion to open up the Thursday, November 8th Monroe Town Board regular meeting.
I'll second that.
Call the question.
Bingham, aye.
Cologne, aye.
Cardone, aye.
Scancarella, aye.
Begin, aye.
Okay. Item 3.1, order of the claims. So we need a motion to approve the claims, pay the bills.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second for discussion.
Okay. Discuss.
Discuss. The Nelson Pope Forey $770 voucher.
Wait, say that again?
Nelson
Nelson.
Pope Forey's $770 voucher.
Yep.
We still don't have official zoning maps from them, and the comp plan has been done for how long?
Really?
I gotta tell you, I don't think it's their fault. I think it's the county's fault, but let me look into that,
All right.
since I have a little time now that our budget is,
Well, you have 2 more, 2 more weeks of budget. to
No, I
finalize,
know, but the
yeah.
bulk of it's taken care of. Okay.
That was the only one I had. I had all my other questions answered by Finance, by Helen.
Okay. All right. So, call the question?
Bingham, aye.
Cologne, aye.
Cardone, aye.
Scankrow, aye.
McGinn, aye.
Okay, so moved. Item 4.1, acceptance of the October 22nd, 2018 minutes.
I will make that motion to accept the minutes.
I'll second.
Okay. Any other changes, alterations, revisions? Nope. Okay, call the question.
Bingham, aye.
Cologne, aye.
Cardone, aye.
Scankrow, aye.
McGinn, aye.
Okay. I'm going to jump around down here since they are present, and I don't want them to wait all this time. And I want the Y to get a discounted attorney bill. So I'd like to ask the YMCA to come up regarding the request of the O&R road, property road.
We're not singing any songs.
Oh, come on.
You saw me. You got me.
What were you
You
saying?
don't want
I was
that,
doing the
trust us.
YMCA.
Just raise that microphone.
Sure. Good evening. My name is Kevin Preston. I'm the president of the board of the YMCA of Middletown. I'm also the attorney for the Y, and with me is Ross Maselli, the director of the Monroe branch of the Middletown Y. We are here tonight to discuss the Y's request to enter into an agreement with the town to utilize the road leading from O&R Park to the YMCA. We have had some discussions between the engineers as to the specifications of the road, any other requirements. Those seem to be going along very well. I've also had some discussions with Mr. Nugent with respect to any necessary legal requirements for an agreement between the town and the Y. As the board is aware, we need the access to the Y in order to pull a building permit to expand the South Orange Family Y, the branch that presently exists in the village. And we're hopeful that our discussions with the town will sort of dovetail with our efforts to pull the building permit and to get started on the expansion as soon as possible.
Okay. I know that I've spoken to Mr. Nugent, I think as has Councilman McGinn. And Brian, should I elaborate on our concern?
Well, yeah, let me give you maybe just a little more overview, and certainly if I say something incorrect, Mr. Preston can correct me. My understanding is that not officially disapproved, but the village did not like the original or this alternate plan for secondary access, which is what's at issue here, secondary access to the property. And there was at some point a discussion about having that access go from the parcel out to 17M. So this plan is sort of the alternative, which would take the secondary access off of Orange and Rockland Road and come through to the parcel, the YMCA parcel. So the initial discussion we had as a board was concerning a potential license agreement, under a revocable license agreement, under which the Y would be able to use that roadway for secondary access, not exclusive, but the town would still have use of the property when it needed it, and so on. I think the concern for the Y is that the planning board will not likely accept a revocable license agreement because they want some assurance that the secondary access will be there long term. So the last discussion Mr. Preston and I had concerned some form of a non-exclusive lease or something that would be longer term, maybe a 15-year agreement, but would not restrict or prevent the town from also using the property. And I explained to Mr. Preston that's a different concept we really hadn't discussed as a board, but that is essentially what they're looking for, is something that they can bring back to the village planning board and say, you know, we've got this pretty much for long-term, and that we'll be able to use it as the secondary access. So, and Kevin, I believe it's fair to say that the license agreement that's irrevocable will not be sufficient for the Y to get that secondary access from the village.
Correct.
Mr. Preston, let me just ask a couple of quick questions. I know one of the concerns that came up about with crossing the Heritage Trail and going out onto 17M, where a couple of the area businesses had concerns about it, how it might impact their business and so forth. And again, those villages, those two businesses are located in the village as well. So, you know, the town is kind of on the periphery of this and just trying to figure out a way to make this work for you guys. So, going across the Heritage Trail, would that be something that the Y would still be interested in?
At this point, I have to be honest with you, we, after some discussions with the village, we pretty much got shut down on that. At this point, we've made up our mind that if it's possible and if we can work it out with the town, we find this now to be preferable, actually.
Okay. And has the village planning board, you know, formally stated to the Y that the only way that they'll issue the building permits is that there has to be a secondary access and it cannot be across the trail?
Oh, no.
Okay.
The only stipulation that the planning board has made is that there be an alternate access.
Right.
Whether it comes from the town, the village, or from someplace else,
Okay.
I'm not sure the planning board is too concerned with.
Okay. So the primary stumbling block to going across the trail at this point is, besides the two businesses, would be what, the mayor or just not wanting to, or the village board, not the planning board, not wanting
You
to.
can't ask Mr. Preston to call the mayor out, so.
Oh, no, I'm not trying to call the mayor out. I'm just trying to figure out what their planning board wants and what their village board wants.
It's been expressed to us that there was some extreme doubt as to whether the village board would approve the road over the Heritage Trail, which is the reason we came to the town, because we saw as a potential alternative this road that would not require us to go out through 17M, but would be sort of just a driveway access, wouldn't have to build any sort of road to town specifications or anything like that. So we found that aspect of it quite preferable to
Right.
having to go over the Heritage Trail and perhaps construct some sort of a traffic configuration on 17M. That, in addition to the fact that we were told that such a proposal wouldn't fly.
Yeah. Even though the county has approved crossing the trail.
The county had approved it.
So I was there for that, so I know,
Yes.
you know, yeah.
Under the prior administration, we had an agreement in principle that the Y could build on that road, and in reliance on that, we did have discussions with the county and negotiated the easement.
Right. Okay.
Now, I had spoken to Ira about 2 weeks ago, and ironically, I checked my phone. He called me before. I didn't see it. The conversation we had was that as long as we gave the Y ample time, they would pursue the crossing the Heritage Trail and exiting on our property, not between the two businesses, over towards Crystal Run.
That's not my understanding. I've talked to Ira on a couple of occasions, and as board president, somebody who sets policy for the Y, it's always been my understanding that once the village shut us down on the Heritage Trail access, that we were pursuing. We really had no option at that point but to pursue the access road with the town.
Oh, no, and I understand that, but in the discussions, and even when we met out on the property with our engineer, the discussions were that would be somewhat of a temporary use versus with the alternative coming out across from Crystal Run, because coming out across from Crystal Run is only like I want to say a 20-yard, 30-yard run from our property to 17M. Now, Mr. Nugent today brought up an excellent idea. His thought was that maybe if you use the 17M as your entrance and use, if it came to that, and then use the 208 road as an exit, that might suffice, because it would alleviate some of the traffic issues.
Yeah, that's an issue that we'd have to bring up with the planning board.
Yeah.
And we're certainly not wedded to using the driveway access that the town has been discussing with us as the permanent alternative. At this point, we need it as an alternative that will have enough permanency that the village board will agree that it can suffice as an alternative access for now. What for now means is probably open to interpretation and open to our discussions with the town about opening the Crystal Run access. But as for now, in order to expand the Monroe Y branch, we do need the town access road, at least for the foreseeable future.
Is the planning board for the village looking for like a letter of commitment or intent on the town's part to say, hey, we're going to do this? And listen, I think what our issue here is that we don't want to get into a long-term agreement with the use of that road, and the reason being that property it's not parkland, and it is, it's got some value, and you sat here through our budget meeting, and it may come to pass that we want to sell that to kind of help out our financial situation a little bit, or we may want to develop it as parkland, because it's a nice piece of property. So we don't want to tie it up by saying for 10 years this road is, this road is deeded to the, not deeded, but, for exclusive use of, you know what I mean?
Right, I do.
So that's our position with it, and we're just trying to figure out a way to kind of make that work.
Right. I mean, the problem is we're dealing with two
entities.
With two competing
Yeah.
entities, with two competing interests. One has an interest in permanency, one perhaps has an interest less so in permanency. And I'm trying to strike a balance here to get an agreement that's permanent enough to permit the Y to expand Sophie, and that is of a duration that's sufficient, that's acceptable to the town board.
The village board.
And
the town board.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. What's your timeline looking at, like, right now?
We have a work session next Wednesday with the village planning board. Ideally, we'd like to be able to go to the planning board and present, and at least indicate to them that we have an agreement in principle to use the road. That'll allow us to go down parallel tracks with the planning board. We don't need to build the road to pull the building permit. We just need an agreement knowing that we can improve this access, this driveway access, prior to the time that we pull the permit. Then we've got a few months where we're going to do the expansion, and we don't need the access road in place until after the expansion is done.
And did they specify whether it's egress or access or egress? What's their preference for that secondary road?
It's my understanding that that the secondary road does need to be ingress and egress, and that's our understanding of how we would use the road if we were to reach an agreement with the town. So we would use both for ingress and egress for the time being.
Okay. No, that's fine.
The supervisor has an interesting idea, and if we could someday work it out that way, that one would be used for ingress and one would be used for egress, but that we view that a little bit down the road at this point.
Do you have any projections as to how many cars would be using this road?
I don't at this point. I know that there are two accesses, and a lot of it depends on the time of day. The Y has a couple of busy times during the day. Otherwise, we don't anticipate it to be an extremely heavily traveled
Would you have
road.
any buses possibly using it as
I don't think
ingress or egress?
it's possible, but if required, we could direct that any buses use the public
Gilbert
access.
Street extension,
Right.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, they have a couple of buses that do the
Right,
camp
that's
runs,
my
but other
question.
than that, just those two buses would probably be going
Because
there.
where it ends up on that O&R road, that's a bad intersection to begin with.
Yeah.
And I would really like some numbers as to how many cars are going to be going through there, because, you know, you can sit there at certain times, and the traffic is backing up. And I think it's the village pushing their problem on the town, because that intersection needs work. And they're maybe looking for a way to circumvent it, and I think it's putting an extra burden on the town. I don't think it's fair to the town residents. And it's a safety concern, too.
I'll be happy to try to get some sort of an estimate of what we'd expect, and I think we can extrapolate out from our current usage and give you a fairly good estimate on that.
Okay.
Yeah, because Ross, I mean, you're not, I mean, of course, one of the hopes of building the pool and expanding would be to also increase membership, but do you see a 20% increase in membership, or?
It's really hard to say.
Yes,
like,
I know.
Definitely, there's going to be, the pool's
Right.
going to be a driver. This is what that community's been waiting for.
Yeah,
You know? So
right.
To tell you it's not going to grow,
Yeah.
it's definitely going to grow.
Because what are the numbers, membership numbers right now?
The Y operates in units, but typically that equates to, you know, we have about 1,300 families utilizing the YMCA.
Right, for different,
They
you
could
know.
be a family of 4 to 6
Right.
in one car.
Right.
riding to the Y.
Right, some are after school, some are
Right.
camps, some are
Correct.
regular members, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you done a traffic study? Or-
We had done a traffic study originally for the 17M entrance,
okay.
but we haven't done one for this,
Okay.
for this access.
Not that, not that I think it's necessary to do it for this, but I think,
I think
I think
it's
it
kind
would-
of important.
can I finish?
Yes.
Okay. But I think because of this board's position, it's important.
Sure.
Because I know, I mean, I've gotten letters from people who are totally against it, that live on the opposite side of where the entrance would be. So,
On 208, not on 17M.
on 208, right?
Yeah, right.
Right.
Because, yeah, it does get ugly up there
And
with
I know,
traffic.
and I know the mayor's concern was the amount of traffic that would also be generated from the Smith Farm development. We have no clue what that's going to entail.
Right. I mean, and the good news about the town access is that it would be a dedicated access, and it would only lead to the Y.
Right.
And so if anyone tried to use it as a cut-through, it would sort of be a waste of time. It's
Right.
just that, it's not that kind of
Because I was going to be
access.
standing out there making sure.
If necessary.
With his traffic vest on and
Yes.
some orange flags. Don't you dare come this way.
So, I mean, I think I think everyone on the board has some reservations, but I also think they're looking to try to work through this, and I think that we'll reach out to the mayor and the board, and we'll try to have some discussions with them within the next couple of weeks,
All right.
and try to come to some sort of an arrangement that works for everyone.
Sure. And I think the Y is confident that, you know, if the board is behind this, although they may have some reservations, that I'm sure we could work out some sort of an acceptable use that will also be acceptable to the village planning board.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and we, you know, I'm sure we can work something out, too, that's going to mollify their concerns.
Good.
All right?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
See you later.
Take care now.
Thanks for being able to accommodate us by coming up early.
Oh, yeah.
We appreciate
Happy
it.
to help.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye now, thank you.
Mr. Supervisor?
Yes.
I'd like to make a correction, if I may. I had erred when voting on the acceptance for the minutes for the 22nd. I wasn't sure if I was there, but I was not present that day.
Okay,
So I'd like to vote again and abstain on that vote,
okay.
if that's all right with
Do
the
we need a
board.
motion for that, council?
I think, yeah, if you originally voted
Yeah.
before them, I would just basically withdraw the previous motion and just make a new motion to approve the minutes and vote it again.
Who made the motion, Val?
I think I
For the
did.
minutes,
Yeah.
hold on one second. Mary.
Okay, so Mary would have to withdraw it.
All right, so I will make a motion to withdraw my original motion to approve the minutes of October 22nd.
Okay, I'll second that. Call the question.
Bingham, aye.
Cologne abstain. Don't say Cologne, just say Cardone.
Cardone, aye.
Scancarello, aye.
Again, aye.
Okay. Now you want to
Remotion?
Oh, no.
re-motion?
I thought that was the.
No, no, that's
That was
why
just a
you
withdrawal.
abstained. I don't know why you
so
abstained on that, but
I'm
that's
not
all
gonna
right.
It's okay, now abstain though.
Now I'm going to
Now,
abstain.
Mary?
So now I will make a motion to accept the minutes of October 22nd.
I'll second.
Seconded by Councilman Scancarello. Call the question.
Bingham, aye.
Cologne again, abstain.
Cardone, aye.
Scancarello, aye.
Again, aye.
Okay, so moved.
Thank you, everyone.
All right. No problem.
Excuse me, Supervisor.
Yes.
Regarding those minutes, first we had the budget workshop. If you look at, on the draft minutes, under number 2.1, after to hear the board docs discussions, there's a comment there that Councilman Rick Cologne came into the meeting at 6:22 PM.
Ooh.
So he was there for that vote.
So I was there.
Oh, boy. So we,
It doesn't matter, I mean, you
No,
don't need to
we're
do it
good
again.
now.
Yeah, they're
Approved.
adopted,
But
so-
thank you for recognizing that, Valerie. Yeah,
That was
Thank
when I
you.
came.
yeah, you texted him.
That's right.
yeah, that was only your team.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
That's
there
right.
we go.
Yeah.
Yeah,
How they talk on that one.
that was the one where he came in looking like Marlon Brando from The Godfather.
Yeah,
And
right.
I was very quiet that meeting I made there, too.
Thanks, Val.
You're welcome.
Okay, item 5.1, we need to discuss and hopefully approve the controlled substance and alcohol policy for the town of Monroe employees that was developed by public sector HR consultants. I know that this draft is as of 10/24, and I know it was reviewed by council. There were some minor changes to it. So I have looked at it. I'll make a motion to approve the controlled substance and alcohol testing policy for town employees.
I'll second.
Any other discussion? Call the question.
Bingham, aye.
Cologne, aye.
Cardone, aye.
Scancarello, aye.
Oh, sorry. Again, aye.
Okay.
Okay, so moved. Next, 5.2, we need to add 2 capital project budget lines which don't go in the budget. They're outside the budget since they're capital project lines. So what I'd like to do is make a motion to approve for our new town hall building, a capital project line, which will be designated as H30, and then a new capital project budget line for the new highway truck, which is H31.
I'll make that motion, that we establish those 2 budget lines for the 2 new capital project budget lines.
Cologne the second.
Seconded by Cologne. Any discussion? Okay, the only discussion I'll say is, it's essentially for the bonding and the
Purchase of the
the
truck.
purchase of the truck in the town hall, so. Call the question?
Bingham, aye.
Cologne, aye.
Cardone, aye.
Scancarello, aye.
Again, aye.
Okay. Next up, the village has written us a letter. It's in the matter of the petition of the mayor and the board of trustees on behalf of the property owners of the village of Monroe requesting the town board of the town of Monroe to exempt all properties in the village of Monroe from the levy and the collection of taxes for stems 3 and 4 of the town highway budget as authorized by section 277 of the highway law. So, stem number 3, the taxes levied and collected against real property within the village of Monroe for subdivision 3 of section 141 of the highway law are used for purchase, repair, custody of highway machinery, tools, implements used on town highways, which highways are located outside the village limits. So, that, for the past, what?
Go ahead.
No, for the past 10 or so years, has not been in the village's, the village has not paid for that in the last 10 years. Because that is a DB fund item, and the total in there is $431,634, and the DB fund is part-town. So the request is kind of null and void, but I would still like to approve it, unless anybody has objections, and I'll leave it to,
Now,
leave
they
it to the
haven't-
board.
They haven't paid it, it's been in there.
It's been in the DB machinery lines for the last 10 years, the way I was explained. It was explained to me, and I went back about 6 years, and it was there. So, and just so everybody in the town board understands, if you go to page 17 of the budget, the way they, STEM 3 on page 17, if you go down to machinery, the second two numbers of the 5130, the 3 and the 30 is obviously where they get that STEM 3 from. So,
So what you're saying is they've been
never
billed
paid
and
it.
they've never paid it.
I don't even believe they've been billed for it because it hasn't been in the DA fund.
The only ones that have been paying for it are the residents that live in the outside areas of, yeah, so.
Correct.
I mean, listen, we get this every year from Harriman and from the Village of Monroe, and the argument is basically that, they have their own highway departments and they shouldn't have to pay for the town highway to maintain, to do maintenance.
Correct.
They shouldn't be charged for it.
And they haven't been.
What?
But supervisor said they haven't been.
Yeah, they haven't been on the machinery,
Yeah, but they've been charged,
on the next item.
right.
But
Right,
we're only talking about machinery.
yeah.
Right.
Right now,
That's all they're asking for?
No, I gotta do this one at a time.
Oh.
We're
Yeah.
doing machinery.
So we're doing machinery, tools, implements, purchase of and repair. So listen, I will make a motion that the town board of Monroe exempt.
Supervisor, I'm sorry, not to cut you off. If the town's position is that they're not being charged, I don't think you should do a motion just in the event that somebody's wrong about that. In other words, if you do want to permanently exempt them, then you can make that motion and continue it, but if they're not being charged, I think the answer would be, to respond and say you're not being charged, and if you believe you are,
Okay.
Provide proof to the town before you make a decision to exempt,
Right.
and just in case
Okay.
there's something factually wrong. That's just my thought, but the board's free.
I happen to agree with
All
that.
right, that's fine. Okay. So, item 4, STEM 4, the taxes levied and collected against real property within the Village of Monroe for subdivision 4 of section 141 of the highway law are used for the removal of snow, the cutting of brush, and other miscellaneous items relating to town highway outside the village limits. So if you go to page 15, the bottom two sections, brush and weeds, snow removal, which total, well, I don't want to total it now because that might change if we make some changes in the budget. So we'll just leave it at STEM number 4. The village will be. Just so, seeing as we charge them, Brian, I guess we don't have to make a motion on that either, right?
Well, unless, in other words,
Unless they want to waive it. 'Cause they're
Unless-
asking us to waive it, so if we,
they're asking you to basically not tax the village residents for use of these services on the town roads.
This argument has come up a number of times.
Yeah.
Because they said that you use our roads and we use your roads, but they can't get out of their village essentially without going through town roads. And it's
Correct.
inclusive, it's the whole town, including the villages. It's a small part of their budget, but again, it's like saying, well, we don't use this particular road, and so we should have like a 10% cut or whatever. I'm just saying here and there, I would just rather leave it the way it is.
Yeah, that's fine, that's exactly what I'm
I'm
saying.
not-
But
I'm not in
I'm
favor.
just asking council if we, since we're charging them and they're asking us to exempt them, we really don't have to make a motion on that either, correct?
No, I can tell you that in the past years, this request has come in, and unless the board is going to exempt them, there's no action required, and, unless the board would direct you to send a letter or something saying, we're going to leave it as is. The only way you'd need a motion is if you're going to now change it, exempt the village, and not tax them under that provision of law.
All right. So just so everyone understands, again, if you go to page 15, under brush and weeds, DA 005144 is anything with the fours in that fund is the STEM 4. So, 5140. Right here.
I got it.
All right? Okay. Re-levy for water districts. We need to make a motion to approve the re-levying of unpaid resident water bills, which will be added to the tax bills, the town tax bills in January of 2019.
I will make that motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Call the question.
Bingham, aye.
Cologne, aye.
Cardone, aye.
Scancarella, aye.
Again, aye.
Okay. We could go into executive session afterwards. Everybody okay with that?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. So we have RFQ for the Town of Monroe Highway Department. John?
You know what, I did not bring the prices with me, they're astronomical. I would
I think,
suggest you,
wait, hold on, I think I got him, hold on.
That's those.
I'm gonna get a nosebleed from looking at this.
Yeah. It was a little wacky.
I know one was in the 90s.
Okay, so we got two quotes for the oil separators. One was from Boyce Excavating in the amount of $74,854, and the other was from Malum Enterprises, which was $97,765.43.
I suggest you deny both of them.
Okay. So, someone want to make a motion to,
I'll make a motion that we reject the bids
Reject.
that we received for the oil water separator for the highway garage.
I'll second that. Cologne, a second.
any discussion?
Yeah, I think we should also contact McGooey Hauser Edsel and find out exactly, they wrote up the bid specs. So we need to find out, did they include something that really shouldn't have been there? Would-
Listen, I spoke to Mark, and the theory, this is the theory behind it, is that these companies are so busy now that they're just jacking the prices up in order to get the job. And if they don't get the job, they're still busy, so they really don't care.
Wow.
So, and I shouldn't say in order to get the job, so that it's very profitable for them if they get the job. So, with that said, we want to call the question.
Bingham, aye.
Cologne, aye.
Cardone, aye.
Scancarella, aye.
Again, aye.
Okay.
With that being said, Tony, I believe Highway can hire somebody with an excavator and an operator, and we can probably perform that job at least half the price.
Okay.
I like that
So-
idea.
Name that too.
What's that?
I love that idea.
So that's what our plan is going to be moving forward.
Okay.
And you could do that in between the leaf pickup and...
This might be a February, March job. We'll have
March,
to see how
probably,
it works
March,
out. We'll have
April.
to see how the weather plays out and go from there.
Okay.
You know, but as long as I can get the tank and start ordering all the components necessary to do the job, and then I would hire somebody out with an excavator or rent an excavator, depending on the circumstances, and then go from there. But I'm sure we could save the town taxpayers a substantial amount of money doing it ourselves.
Thank you, John.
Thanks, John.
That's why you are who you are, John.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, item 8.3, the Town of Monroe fee schedule. Mary?
Well, we're still working on the fee schedule. John is going to, he has definitely stated that the highway charges need to be increased that are in there. The town clerk has responded already. The building inspector has responded already, waiting for the planning department. And then this board will need to decide about like water rates, outside water district users, the accessory apartment. So there are still some things that need to be discussed as a town board, but we could probably do that with our attorney-client.
Okay. You know what, Jeff Manson is here. Jeff, what I want to do is, has he gotten any of these schedules
No.
so,
I believe Bonnie is, she just communicated with Mr. Nugent just a few days ago. So I don't think she shared it past, I didn't share it with her board. I only shared it with the chairperson.
okay. So Jeff, there's Blooming Grove, Deer Park, Tuxedo, there's a whole bunch of different towns that have fee schedules attached in here. So I'll give them to you, this way you guys have them. Thank you very much. No, I got it on my computer, thank you.
Less paperwork, the better.
And then I don't know what to do with the ZBA. We kind of, supervisor, we had that discussion that there would be some changes because some of the members will not be residing in the town of Monroe, so I don't know who to forward that
Yeah,
request to.
I think it would, Brian, would it be best if she forwarded it to Dave McCartney, our attorney for the ZBA?
I believe there was some communication with Dave already. I'm not sure what the outcome was, but I believe that somebody had spoken to him about the fees. I'm not sure if he responded. We briefly discussed it, and I know there was no real concern in what he saw on the fees. And then I had provided Bonnie with sort of the, general legal outlines of when it comes to professional fees and things like that. When it comes to your town fees, it's just a question of reasonableness and that the fees should correspond to the services being provided. So it's not like you're going to have a fixed, answer on what a certain fee should be, but they certainly can't be unreasonable in comparison. And I'll give you an example. In some places, municipalities use a percentage for a building permit, which typically works just fine. But when you get to a large project, that fee can, because of that percentage, become excessive, and they have been challenged. So that's where, modifications sometimes need to be made, but for the most part, the fees I saw looked pretty standard on the schedule, so I didn't see anything that was of concern. And when it comes to professional fees, it's, again, the only caveat is that the town can't charge applicants for board advice. So if the planning board wants, an understanding of a particular law, and the attorney's going to provide them guidance, even though it might relate to an application, you can't properly bill the applicant for that. But you can certainly bill for the review and the work being done on the application that's before the ZBA or the planning board, and have an escrow, and which I believe the town does.
Okay, but
Okay, does that answer your question, Mary?
no.
Okay, what's your question?
What was the question?
The fees that we have on our fee schedule, I understand are customary and proper to use, but what we're asking our departments to do is to see if they're too low. So that's why the highway department, I know specifically, has said he's going to look into it because he thinks some of them are too low. Like, for example, a road opening fee in some towns could be, let's backtrack 1 second. Our fee schedule hasn't been updated since 2012. So it's been quite a while. And, time, labor, personnel, everything's increased over time. So let's say the fee used to be $250. If the highway department now says a road opening fee is $350, that's their decision based on what they know about their labor rates and their costs incurred in that type of activity, correct?
Yeah, there should be some articulable basis for that fee, so you can't just arbitrarily say, oh, 350 sounds good because it's been 5 years since we updated our schedule. There should still be some correlation to and reason, so that's a factual question that goes back to each department head to say, look, this is what, salaries have gone up 2% per year, so if it's been 10 years, then, you're paying more for that inspection to be done. You're paying more probably for gas and more for equipment. So all those costs would go up, and the corresponding fee should go up. Ultimately, it's going to be a challenge whether it's reasonable. So that's up to each department head to say this needs to be increased or this fee is still workable.
Okay, and then I had another legal question that I had sent you an email on. The building inspector said on one of the things that the fee was low, but because people don't come to the building inspector when they're doing work when they should be, they come after the fact. Would it be proper for us to also include a penalty or a fine in addition to what the fee is for, let's say, putting up a retaining wall? Person decides, oh, it looks pretty in my yard, I'm going to put up a retaining wall. But that's something that the building inspector has to charge and go out and look at. If he goes after the fact, after this retaining wall is up already, can he not only charge the fee for inspecting the retaining wall, but can he also charge a fine on top of that?
So if you're describing it as a fine, the answer is likely no, because to charge a fine, you'd have to give a notice of violation and go through the process for telling somebody that they did something wrong, which that would be, building without a permit would be a violation. If there is some difficulty created or some additional step that's required because his inspection, needs to be different now, because typically sometimes they inspect in stages, and now you've got a built wall and, there's some additional work required, that could justify a higher fee for a post-construction inspection versus doing it when it was being built as it should be. But it wouldn't be a fine. It would have to be for that reason. If we're talking fine, then he'd have to say, well, you're in violation. You're going to have to pay for the building permit fee, and, they can settle the matter and say, we're going to charge an additional $50. If you want to settle it, we can, do that as a notice of violation through court. But you really can't fine directly like that.
Wouldn't we have to make an ordinance on that?
I'm sorry?
If we're going to pass that, we have to pass a town law or ordinance?
No, because you already have town law. You can't build without a building permit, so.
No, but I'm just saying for the fee, for the, if you're going to put in a fine.
If you're going to increase, in other words, if you wanted to say, if what I just
As a
told
fee.
you is
I mean,
justified,
as a fine.
a post-construction fee for something would be higher than the regular fee. You could do it that way. I just don't know factually if that is the case, but if it requires more work on the building inspector's part, then yes, you could justify a higher fee. It's not a fine or a penalty.
It's just a higher fee. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay. So we should, Mary, try to have this completed by January, so we could just...
I would like to get it completed by the end of December. John is going to try for our next meeting to get his input in, because as I said, there's still a few things the town board
Yep.
would have to discuss. So at the reorg meeting, it will be all
Well-
set to go.
Well, yeah, that's what I want.
Yes.
I would like it
Mhm.
done then, so then we could just adopt the new fee schedule for that year.
That's the plan.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Thank you for your work on it, too, appreciate it. Okay, 8.3, Microsoft Office licenses. We discussed this briefly last meeting. It's $230 per user. When we spoke to our IT providers, there was really only 2 locations that it was essential. They had Office 2016. One was Dial Bus, and the other was the assessor. The assessor is in the process of getting new computers, so right now they're on hold with that. So it won't cost us somewhere in the neighborhood of $10,000 that we originally thought. It's basically $230 for a dial-a-bus, and then it might be like $1,000 for the assessor's office. So, no motion or resolution needed for that. The Y is done. So, public comment.
Mr. Supervisor, there's just, in my packet, there were two vouchers for, it looks like escrow returns. Do you have that, or is that, I just want to make sure it's not something we're missing. One is,
Is it towards the end?
yeah, they were in between,
Does
I
that
believe
have
that
to
was
do with
executive
the-
session,
Yeah.
attorney-client.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
There you go.
Yep.
Not anymore. Well, I didn't say exactly what they were. so.
No, yeah, you're good.
Well, I didn't see anything here about it, that's why, but all right. Thank you for pointing that out, Mr. Nugent.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, moving right along.
Val, anybody sign up for public comment?
Mike Goldstein? Ward Brower?
Didn't pass. Ward Brower, private citizen. Point brought up by Mr. Goldstein about projected mortgage tax. Looked kind of high, and I've been monitoring the planning board for almost as many years as I've monitored this board, and I've been liaison from the Conservation Commission to that board. And since 2008, the only development I've seen are coming from supersized structures. So that brings me to an old point from a couple of years ago. When we had the moratorium, and we have 446 old permits been out there, some for 30-some years. But all of them have been seekered for a certain size family, generally 4.5 people. That's not reality here. And we're presently experiencing the effects of that in this joint venture called Smith Farm. That is a lot bigger than what it was ever envisioned when Mary was on the planning board. The ramifications are a lot worse. And that we can't do too much about other than take fines from DEC, et cetera, et cetera. But the other projects have not been implemented yet. They have not started. And I brought this question up before many times, brought it for the planning board. Planning board says, well, Board of Health. Went to the Board of Health engineer says, nope, that's a planning board call. It's a lead agency call on the head count. Talk about the number of people per dwelling. But planning board didn't want any part of that, political hot potato. Problem is, reality sets in. Now we have 446 permits minus the, what's called a starting development. It's going into families of 8 to 12 people, which affects water, sewer, traffic, social services, all those ramifications. We need to address that. We have not. Now, that I've been, and I used to have a position as liaison with a microphone for last two planning board chairs. That was helpful. Sitting back in the audience with no microphone, it's hard to raise questions, conservation. And I was particular, and I'd never meddled in, and Mary can back me up, I never meddled in internal affairs of the planning board. I only address conservation issues. In fact, when Audra Swartz was chair, she wanted to change the meeting time, wanted to move it up. And she asked me for my opinion. And Mary will remember my comment. That is your business, not mine. So I only wanted to, but I lost that position this year. So it makes it very difficult. In fact, it wasn't until the last couple of meetings that I could even see what was going on because the monitor was facing the planning board, not the audience. So I literally set it in the dark. Not that I could make any comments anyway. So these are things that need to be addressed. And the other point, and I don't really get pleasure chastising the board. I believe you guys are generally had to work hard to get this budget where it is. But you boxed yourself into a corner. That's my opinion. You should have explored more ramifications of this consequence of the new town. That being said, because one municipality does not allow...
You got to wrap up because your time was up about
Thank you.
45 seconds ago.
That was my point.
Be quick. No, be quick.
Thank you.
You can go ahead. You can go ahead.
I appreciate the gesture. Because one municipality does not allow comments on the budget, that does not mean that that's the right thing to do. We are in a democracy, a representative democracy. But this town has made the practice of letting public attend those workshops and make comments on it. And that, I think, is a practice that we should be proud of and not remove ourselves from. Thank you.
Thank you, Ward.
Thank you.
Lorraine Loning. Wendy and Manuel Cortez left the meeting, so that leaves Jeff Manson.
Good evening.
Good evening, Jeff Manson.
Hey, Jeff.
I'd like, although I've addressed concerns directly to members of the board, I want to get onto public record some of my concerns about entering a possible agreement with the Y. They're talking about approximately 1,300 carloads. In an article when this was all first talked about in the Photo News, they estimate approximately 7,000 members from Monroe are members of the Y, and keeping in mind it's not just Monroe's Y, but South Orange's, a total of 11,000 members. I think we can anticipate, as they do, that there's going to be an increase in membership with an extension. And I want to be clear, the Y provides an excellent service. I'm in favor of their expansion and, serving the community of South Orange. But to categorize this exit through the town land as a secondary or auxiliary exit is very unrealistic. The primary exit, the current entrance and exit on Gilbert, is a disaster, as it is. I would anticipate that this entrance and exit will become the primary, because for the people from the Y, it's the safer bet. It's not necessarily easier, but it's safer. And so that's where people will be coming in. To enter into any kind of agreement, number one, without some kind of traffic study, not only to the existing conditions, what would exist if that driveway, let's call it, road, were to exist, and to not take into consideration the alternative you proposed tonight, and not just consider what's going on right there, but what's going on 208 and how that's going to be impacted, and to take into consideration in that study the impact of the increase in population and the stress on the infrastructure from palm tree. It's a reality. It's not, I'm not saying good, bad, indifferent. We know that because of the proximity of the exit 130, effectively, that's the auxiliary entrance into Palm Tree. Aside from the Bakertown Road entrance, most of the traffic in the Palm Tree crosses over to Scunamunk Road after coming off of 208, goes over the bridge on Forest, and that is what it is. There is no other real alternative. That's the secondary entrance, and I watch it in and out, living on that intersection. I'm a daredevil. I don't necessarily mind the challenge, but then my wife and children are pulling off that road, and my neighbors, and into that road. It's tough. As it is, it's tough. And this is just going to be an added strain to what we know is going to already receive additional strain. So to not take that into consideration, and I don't hear the Y proposing anything about a solution to that. If they were looking at something that was integrated, that would solve their problem and solve the surrounding problems that already exist there and the ones that will exist in the future, I'd be more willing to listen myself. But I'm not hearing that. But I think you should be. And that, to not make that conditional upon any consideration is irresponsible. Right, we're solving a village problem, we're solving a nonprofits problem that we don't draw really any direct, revenue benefit from, and creating a problem for ourselves that we're going to then have to pay to solve, that the county will have to pay to solve on a county road. It already exists. Look, I'd love for them to come up with a great idea to solve that problem holistically, but I don't hear it, and I think we should be. Beyond that, if I have a moment, just a question for Mr. Hausler about, in relation to the fee schedule and the questions about possibly some sort of punitive fine if people build without receiving permits and then come back, they've received a violation, they come back before the planning board for forgiveness and post permission, and to not be able to provide any kind of
punitive action on that, even if it meant amending town law. I just don't understand how that couldn't be possible, and I'd just like to understand that better. It's a question I've been asking. We have this year run into that situation on the planning board. I'm sure we've run into it in years past, where people come and say, solve my problem that I've created after the fact. Oh, and by the way, I don't want to be penalized for that in any way, shape, or form either. I mean, I didn't do the right thing. I didn't follow the law, but no, it's all good, right? You can make it good. And that's kind of, what we're getting, and I'm sure it's what we got. So I'd just like to understand the dynamics of how that all works a little better, if I could. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you, Jeff.
That's all for public comment.
Okay. Anybody want to speak?
Okay. Ward with the family size, I know we've been, at the planning board and Board of Health, we've had those discussions. The way it's written is it's based on the number of bedrooms. Whether there's one child in a bedroom or 5 children in a bedroom, there's no way of knowing that. If there's some way to figure out a better way, I don't know what it is, but then you're right, it affects the water, it affects the sewer. So I'm open to suggestions. I'll reach out to the Board of Health, see if they have any other ideas, but in the past, I know it's kind of been a dead end. The why, I agree, something, let's see, there used to be, back when Sandy Leonard was supervisor, there was a town engineer by the name of Al Fusco looked into that intersection. I could ask the town clerk to possibly see if there's anything in the town records to what was suggested to rectify that intersection over there. I don't know if it exists. I don't know if anything was ever done, but I know it's been on the drawing board as a problem for discussion for a number of years. And the fee schedule, maybe Mr. Nugent could enlighten us a little bit more, because that was my question earlier. Could we impose a fee as well? That's my comments. Thank you.
You want me to address that now?
Go ahead.
Sure.
Please do.
Yeah, so I want to be clear. I wasn't stating earlier that somebody can't be penalized. All I was saying is that the building inspector cannot simply have a penalty that somebody comes in and he says, I'm penalizing you, and they pay it. That's a fee. That's a fee schedule. It can't be done through a fee schedule. But anybody who builds something or does something that requires a building permit is subject to that same building inspector issuing them a violation and saying you built without a permit, and therefore, and I'm not saying it always happens. Sometimes it's a matter of what was the intent, and is it egregious, or somebody really not know, or it's a minor, construction versus something that would have had to go to the planning board. Ultimately, they can proceed with that violation, they can require them to go to the planning board. Sometimes when they end up in justice court, what's very common is if it's a planning board matter, they require the applicant to go through the process, and then they might, give them an ACD, they might give a small fine, it might give a large fine, depending on the circumstance. The other problem for the property owner, and usually the reason that people come into compliance, is because they either go to sell their property and they can't, because they can't get a C of O for those things that were done improperly. But the building inspector has all of its rights to address violations and to fine, but remember, it's the court that fines people, not the building inspector. So, my answer earlier is, and it's the same, the building inspector cannot impose a penalty or a fine without going through the justice court process. All he could do is say, this inspection is generally going to cost me more because it wasn't done initially, and now I have to take some extra step. That could be built into a fee schedule, but that's different than the fine and the penalty side, so I don't know if that clarifies it.
Well, Mr. Nugent, I think one of the things you had mentioned is, what if you did a post-construction inspection fee, which would be considerably higher than the normal fee that would be, the normal building permit fee. In other words, I now need to get a permit, and the building inspector now has to come out, but I've already completed my project. Could that be something that the town could look at to do to make sure that and I'm not saying it circumvents what the court's going to do, but it
Yeah.
doesn't give much of a
I understand.
penalty to those that don't follow the building.
Yeah, I understand the
I
question.
mean, listen, clearly I'm not the lawyer. You are. I mean, is that something we can do or no?
Again, you can't, and what you said there can't be done. You can't impose a significantly higher fee for post-construction inspection, because what that really is a penalty. You're saying the building inspector's going to say, or the town's going to say, because you did this, now your $50 fee is $500. That's a penalty unless you can justify as a fee schedule why that $500 is reasonable with respect to the inspection, because that's all we're talking about is fees. If we increase something disproportionately, then it essentially is a penalty without any process, without any, notice
Due
of
process,
violation,
yeah,
which
right,
is
right,
what
right.
the reason is, that the violation has to be the violation. And that's how it's handled in towns and villages everywhere. If somebody builds, they typically get a notice of violation, says, you did this without a building permit, and that usually begins the process of them coming into compliance. Now, somebody comes in voluntarily and says, I think I screwed up, and somebody told me I should have got a permit for this shed or whatever. Yeah, the building inspector does have discretion to say, all right, this person came to me, I didn't go there and find it, and they seem like they genuinely want to correct a problem. So it's not like they have to give the person a notice of violation. But at the end of the day, when we talk about fee schedules, they have to be based on reasonable guidelines that are commensurate with the services being performed. Same reason you can't have a building permit and say, hey, if someone's doing a hotel, our building permit fee is going to be, $200,000, without tying that to some basis for why you're charging the increased fee.
Okay.
I know what you want to do, but
Just asking.
Hey, we just, just to add to that, I mean, one of the thoughts was when Mary was coming up with this fee schedule, there was a caveat for a fine. if
Right,
you-
and
if-
that's
if
why I
you-
said I had
if you made-
emailed Mr. Nugent earlier.
Yeah, if there was a violation. And, my thought was that the wording should be so that it's a minimum fine, because I'm looking at somebody that does a shed, okay, and has to come back, is basically going to be fined, and let's say that number is $500, okay? But somebody who clear cuts land and without a permit, and then is in violation there, I mean, $500 is nothing for clear cutting land. I mean, I think that fee should be in the, in the thousands, maybe tens of thousands, for doing something like that based on the acreage. So.
yeah, so just understand, you're talking about fines and fees, which are two very different things. Fees are not fines, and you can't make a fee a fine, period. A fee is something the town collects for a service. A fine is not something the town can impose. The town can put fines in its code, but those fines only get imposed by the justice court and not by the town. So that's the bottom line.
All right. There we go.
There you
Justice
go.
Court.
Justice Court.
There you go.
Judges.
Okay. Any other comments?
Jeff, incredibly valid points about the YMCA there. I agree with you 100%. I think we're facing a possible disaster down the road over there with Palm Tree and the traffic as it is now, and then Smith Farm. And I think this is something we need to look into further. I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, I mean, we need to balance that out, their needs, and they do a lot of good in the community.
They
And as
do.
a disclaimer, I am a member there, although it may not look like it. I'm a member there, and
Maybe they can come up with some sort of resolution with us, and we can work together, but I think Jeff makes some valid points there.
Listen, I think, the county gave the approval to go across the trail. 17M is a much better roadway to go out to, and I think that makes a lot more sense. And I think what we need to do is sit down with the village and have a discussion and try to work this out. And again, none of this cost should be borne on the town. I know Mr. Rogers had expressed that, and it shouldn't be. And of course, they've built it into their estimates. It shouldn't, and I don't believe it's going to be. But the more we're hearing and seeing, I think that's the way to go.
Well, gentlemen, ladies, here's the other problem. The Y is in the village, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
The Y, the original building was industrial, correct? Because when I
Yes.
sat on the board and the Y was going there, it was in an industrial location that did not have much traffic. The problem is that they bought a building, repurposed it. It has much more traffic, and now we're trying to resolve an issue because an agency decided to repurpose a building and a governmental agency approved it. So in other words, the village approved it to be the Y, and this is not anything against it. They needed a building, they needed a place. It's approved for that, and now we have a traffic problem, and we're trying to work ex post facto after the fact of this building being repurposed. So either we're gonna have to come on to 17 and put a light there, because as you turn off at 208, we've had accidents, we're gonna have more. Simple. Or at least I see it as, that's the only way we can go. I mean, I'm talking about safety for people coming on and off, and there's gonna be an increase of traffic, like the gentleman who stepped up to the microphone before said they're gonna expand, they're gonna increase traffic, they have to increase membership. It's making another problem that's out of our hands. So we only have one solution, that I see. That was brought up before. To me, it's clear. As far as building, another gentleman had brought up the issue again once of supersized families or whatever. If you're gonna do it we cannot dictate what people can have in their family, we just can't. There's no way around that. If you're gonna go by bedroom, then you can say either it's bedroom size and how many people you can fit per bedroom, but that's gonna be a slippery slope to go down. How much water they're gonna use, maybe they're gonna have to fill out something on how much water they're going to use based on how many. I don't know if we can do it that way. It's a valid point because it's going to affect water, and like it or not, water is going to be a very, very serious commodity in the next 20 years, not only for this town, but for the whole country. Water becomes a more serious problem because what's in water? Plastics, exotic drugs, salt to the earth, you know. But there's all sorts of other things now because people are taking more pharmaceutical drugs, the increase in population. That's all coming out in the wastewater. It doesn't really come out with the filtering system. Other problems. So it's something that we all have to think long and hard about what we're going to do. That's my comment. Thank you.
All right. Jeff, thank you for your comments. Thank you for your service to the town on the planning board. I mean, it was evident by your presentation that this board is proud and happy to have appointed you to that. And just to clarify, I mean, I said it wasn't necessary, but I still wanted it done. And what I meant by that, I didn't think it was a requirement that we had to do, but it was something that would be in our best interest to do, and I'm referring to the traffic study. So, thank you for your comments, and I know this board did get your letter, so, all good there. Anyone else?
One last comment?
Oh, man.
Surprising.
Councilman
Surprising.
Cologne.
Yeah, well,
Okay, Jerry.
I'm feeling that my jaw's back. My jaw's back. So
Does he get 3 minutes?
just to what Tony, what you said about thanking Jeff for his service. Also, we've had a lot of citizens come forward to help the board and this town with different studies, the lighting study, the fee study. These are people who are coming forward and volunteering their time and, you know, as a service to the community. And again, all of us are really basically part-time workers because we do this in addition to our regular jobs and our families, just like you come and to voice your opinion at these town meetings. So thank you very much, and thank you to everyone in the town that comes forward to help out and make this community a better place. I don't think it's said often enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick.
Thanks, Rick. Anybody else have anything?
Yeah, just on the supersized family and permits. Listen, I think, we know where you're kind of going with it, Ward, and I know what you're saying, but to say all 478 of those permits are all going to accommodate 8 to 10 to 12 people is, I mean, it's highly speculative because, well, that's, you could, listen, I'm just saying, you're saying one thing, and we don't know that, right? Just listen, that's, and we can't say that, because like Mr. Cologne said, the other Cologne said, is that, that is a very slippery slope. You're gonna tell people you have to limit your site as a family, you're gonna tell them, but I'm just saying, we as a board can't sit there and make that determination. That's something that gets done in the planning process, and bedrooms are the count, and that's what's used, like Mary said, so,
It's like a 500-year storm that happens every other 6 months. They worked well, those parameters worked well for a long time, but they don't work any longer. 500-year storm doesn't work, neither does ignoring the supersized family. Even when you look at the census, which Bonnie did, went to the comprehensive plan, census from KJ, 5.7 people per household. Now, look at the household, that encompasses the village is 40 years old, which means that a good percent of those are empty nesters. So those numbers are soft. There's only 2 people in the house, not...
I mean, listen, we could disagree about this all day long, because I think that's kind of speculative, what you're saying right now. Well, I listen, it's...
No, you go to the census and go to the age group.
Gentlemen, we're getting out of order here.
Let's,
Yeah, all right,
get back on track.
all right.
All right?
But thank you.
Thanks. Motion to adjourn?
No,
Attorney Klein.
I'm sorry. Motion to go into executive session to discuss
Attorney-client.
personnel matters and litigation.
Second, by Cologne.
Seconded by Councilman Cologne. Call the question.
Bingham, aye.
Cologne, aye.
Cardone, aye.
Scancarello, aye.
Good night.
Okay.
That one's not,
Okay.
the one for Roberta, you're going to talk to Helen first?
No. We'll approve it.
Yeah, someone did
With the
it.
dollar amount?
With the dollar amount.
But
Yeah.
not the,
Yeah.
okay.
Do you imagine?
Okay. Motion to come back into regular session.
I'll make that I'll second that.
Second that. Call the question.
Bingham, aye.
Cologne, aye.
Cardone, aye.
Scancarello, aye.
McGinn, aye.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion to approve a $1,200 stipend that will be divided between Helen Knickerbocker and Roberta McBride. And I will discuss with them the division of it.
That's all the work they did on that.
That's for all the work they did on the budget. There was a lot of hours, after regular business hours. And there was...
No overtime was incurred.
No overtime, right. Helen was, is that what you said, Mike?
Yeah, no overtime was incurred.
No overtime was incurred. They basically put the hours in without any expectation. And Helen was at the 3 budget meetings and will be here, I think, as well on the 19th. So
I'll second that.
Seconded by Councilman Scangarello. Any other discussion? Call the question.
Bingham, aye.
Cologne, aye.
Cardone, aye.
Scancarello, aye.
McGinn, aye.
Okay, so moved. Need approval for payment to Blanca Johnson for 80 hours, which was a discrepancy payment in hours that she wasn't scheduled. I had a chat with our, I make that motion for 80 hours, and I'll discuss it quick.
I'll second.
for discussion. So, she was not allocated, the correct amount of hours during her tenure with the theater. And after discussing it with our council and the union rep, it was agreed that we would pay out 80 hours of the balance that she was owed. Okay, call the question.
Bingham, aye.
Cologne, aye.
Cardone, aye.
Scancarello, aye.
McGinn, aye.
Again, aye.
Yeah. There was, we have to recode a billing from the zoning board for accessory apartments. And I will have Helen do that. 75% of the coding will go to, what'd you say, the
General
general?
administrative.
General
legal,
administration.
and Engineering. One,
And
because. you
Legal
said
and
that-
engineering?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Rather than 100% being burdened to the applicant. So I'll make that motion.
I didn't think we needed a motion for that one. That was just.
Did we need a motion on that?
No, you were just going to do the
No.
coding change.
Okay, so what was the third one then, Mary?
KJ contract, Palm Tree Highway.
Okay. All right, so we have a contract for the plowing services over in KJ, which will encompass us obtaining $48,000 plus a $5,000 stipend for the highway superintendent, and that $48,000 is per month, I'm sorry. And
That's what I was saying.
it will incorporate 5 months from November 15th, 2018 to April 15th, 2019. So in essence, the contract will be $240,000 plus the $5,000 stipend, and we will not be obligated to purchase salt. That would be done by KJ, and they will essentially place their salt over in our shed. It will be done in 2 payments, $50,000 up front for salt, and then another $50,000 in February, provided that we have a harsh winter. If it's not, we'll adjust whatever, tonnage is remaining to KJ. So I'll make that motion.
Since we don't actually have a contract, do we want to say authorize the
Subject
attorney?
to attorney's approval.
Yeah.
Why don't we do the motion to authorize supervisor to execute agreement in a form satisfactory to town council? with
That's
those
exactly what I
terms?
said. I don't know why you... Sounds good.
I'll make that motion.
Second?
I'll second.
Any other discussion?
And also, they're not going to go back and do any second runs after people clean off their cars.
Correct. He's already had a discussion with Zalman, the highway super over there, and that would be placed, that responsibility would be placed on KJ.
Yeah.
And there will also be some indemnification wording in the contract. Correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And lastly, any intention to enter into a contract for next winter must be brought to the attention of the highway superintendent no later than August 30th.
August 30th or August 1st?
Oh, August 1st, I'm sorry, August 1st.
August 1st, okay. All right. Call the question?
Bingham, aye.
Cologne, aye.
Cardone, aye.
Scancarello, aye.
McGinn, aye.
Okay, so moved. Any other business?
We got to pass these 2 resolutions. for
Yes, for Anne Marie. You want to read them?
Yeah, I'll read them. First resolution is to allow representatives of International Auction to use the Senior Center on December 6, 2018, 8:30 a.m., which is set up. Public would be allowed at 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. pending proper certificate of insurance naming the town of Monroe as additional insured, and a user fee in the amount of $1,000 made payable to the town of Monroe and must accompany the CO1 and submitted the application no later than November 21st, 2018.
Okay, I'll second that. I'll second that. Any other discussion? Call the question?
Bingham, aye.
Cologne, aye.
Cardone, aye.
Scancarello, aye.
McGinn, aye.
All right, second resolution is to allow Monroe resident Miguelina Pena, exercise instructor, to use the senior center on 2 Saturdays a month to be scheduled with the director of senior center on a trial basis for the months of December 2018, January, and February of 2019. pending proper certificate of insurance naming the town of Monroe as additional insured, and a user fee of $50 made payable to the town of Monroe for each use, and must accompany the CO1, the application certification. The key must be signed out through the town's clerk's office on the Friday morning and returned on Monday morning.
I'll second the
that.
discussion.
Seconded by Councilman McGinn. Any other discussion?
Yeah,
He has discussion.
yeah, what is this for, like an exercise class?
It's an yeah,
Is
it's
it for the
a,
seniors, or is it for the general public, or what's the deal with
I
it?
think it's a combination.
I think it's a combination.
Okay.
She did this at the movie theater.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah,
she had,
public,
I
I
think,
believe.
15 people in her group, and she wants to try it out here.
Oh, okay.
So Anne Marie's going to give her 3-month trial basis.
Okay.
Call the question.
Bingham, aye.
Cologne, aye.
Cardone, aye.
Scancarella, aye.
McGinn, aye.
Okay, one other quick note. So Ben and Mark have a seminar that is up in Kingston, New York. Ben will come down and pick up the car on the Monday. The seminar goes from Monday through Friday. Mark lives in Liberty, so in order for him to use the car, he would have to drive down to Monroe Monday morning, then to drive back up to Kingston. He has requested if he could leave his car here Friday when he leaves for work, take the town car home for the weekend, and then drive it up to Kingston on a daily basis, and then bring it back on Friday.
Is this just Mark, or?
This is just Mark. Ben will pick his up Monday morning.
But that means we're losing both cars.
Yeah, but it's for the building inspectors.
Okay.
We still have the third car.
So, wait a minute, now he's gonna pick it up Friday,
He's gonna pick it up
Have it for the
Friday. Well, he'll be working Friday, so he'll take it home Friday
and have it during the weekend.
and have it during the weekend.
So he's
Not
gonna,
to be used for personal use, obviously.
maybe. That's why I think you should come by Monday morning and pick it up. That's what they make me do at the state.
So you want him to come by Monday morning from Liberty
Yeah,
and drive to Monroe, and
And
then
drive to Kingston.
drive to Kingston. If he
Takes the
takes it
car
home for the weekend, going from Liberty to Kingston is probably half of what he would be doing that morning.
Yeah.
I would just let him borrow it with the strong caveat that
He
it is
doesn't
not for
use it.
personal use.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if there's no other vehicle that he can use over the weekend, then he should definitely be coming Monday and picking it up.
He's got other cars.
all right,
Yeah, he's got,
All right, I'm
he
fine
collects
with that
cars, so he's got a Camaro and a couple other ones.
okay, then, I didn't know
Okay.
that, I'm fine with
Okay.
that then,
You right?
yes.
Okay. So I need a motion for that, or can we just, I guess we should, what's that? Motion? All right, motion to allow Mark Van Etten to use the town vehicle to attend a seminar in Kingston. He will pick the car up on Friday. It's not to be used for personal use over the weekend, and then he will return it the following Friday. This will alleviate considerable extra travel on Monday prior to him going to the start of the conference. So I'll make that motion.
I will
second it.
Seconded by Councilwoman Bingham. Any other discussion? Call the question.
Bingham, aye.
Cologne, aye.
Cardone, aye.
Scancarella, aye.
McGinn, aye.
Any other business? Motion to adjourn.
Second, by Cologne.
Call the question.
Bingham, aye.
Cologne, aye.
Cardone, aye.
Scancarella, aye.
McGinn, aye.